presented here for your consideration the notion that the ordinary people surrounding you every day, on the street, the bus, at the post office, or the trendy evening venue, are, in fact, far from ordinary. That these men, women, and others form their own splinter groups behind closed doors, and that these micro-societies engage in activities often more obscure than fiction. Welcome to the Sub-Subculture.
Hello, and welcome to the Sub-Subculture Podcast. I am your host and top-shelf adults-only Bible distributor, Andrew.
And I'm Joe, the face of Assless Chaps Incorporated.
Assless chaps.
My favourite kind of chaps.
Significantly lacking in leather for this week's topic.
Are there non-assless chaps? Are there assed chaps? I've never heard of them.
Just chaps. Leather trousers would be chaps, no?
Ah, we're all chaps here.
So this week we are talking about the Hells Angels. But are these misunderstood proponents of masculine freedom who love a powerful machine, or a criminal element that has successfully seeded itself across the world?
Misunderstood or misunderestimated? Dun, dun, dun.
Something like that. And what do you think? What did you think about the Hells Angels before we started researching? What was your preconceptions?
I cleverly wrote down my preconceptions actually before starting the research this time.
As opposed to usually trying to remember / make them up. I'm pretty sure I thought it was a small gathering of trees.
Yep, so I've done it correctly this time. So I know the name extremely well, but little about the details. I thought they were an infamous motorcycle gang / club, maybe the most infamous one ever. And I suppose they probably came around in the 60s and 70s, but I didn't really know what they stood for, what they did. I think I saw an HQ for one in Reading once, which didn't really impress me. I thought it's a crappy looking building with crappy decor in Reading, which is not exactly an amazing place. And I thought this is probably something that grown men do as cosplaying real hard men. That's not actually hard men, just acting the image, not actually living the image.
I'm worried for your safety if they ever manage to find a phone big enough to use with their giant masculine thumbs and press on the downloading this episode and hear you besmirching them.
Anyone listening who's a Hells Angel, please listen to the rest of the episode before caving my face in for me.
And then listen to the furries episode, and then listen to ASMR, and then listen to FDS. And if you still want to cave our faces in after that, hopefully we'll have had enough time to leave the country.
I'd say if you still want to cave our faces in after that, fair enough. That's a informed decision. I can't blame you.
You've done your research.
Done your research, Good. Yeah. And I thought there's probably, I don't know, there's definitely some association with the criminal underworld, but I honestly kind of thought that it's more probably just cosplay. In fact, so everything here, I don't think they actually do anything other than jerk each other off at their meetings and ride around in a group of 40 hoping someone will beep them so they can 40-on-1 a fellow accountant and feel hard. They strike me as slightly dangerous losers. Harley Davidsons are probably the motorcycle of choice for them, and they seem like the most douchey of motorcyclists, the ones on Harleys. They've got the most to prove and then the most fragile and the most doughy, I've also written. So that was my impression of the Hells Angels before doing any research.
Coming in hard, hot takes.
Yeah. That was it, pretty much. What about you?
I can hear them outside your house already. I can hear you through the windows. Although that might be a backfiring lawnmower. What did I think? I guess not really similar, because I didn't have as much contempt for them as you seem to have started off with. I thought they're a biker gang, right? They're grizzled, tough dudes who dress in leather and ride Harley Davidsons. I think I knew there was some link or some rumors of connections to violent crime and whatnot, but I don't really know much about it, or didn't know much about it as a culture beyond maybe movie cliches and that one video game that was point and click from the 90s. Point and click adventure games. Full Throttle, remember that?
No, not heard of that one.
Oh, it was good. Well, no, actually, I think it was panned as being bad, but I enjoyed it. It had a great cast, like all the cast of Batman the Animated Series just about were doing voices for it, including Mark Hamill.
Really?
Himself, voicing a cheesy motorcycle video game.
It was a motorcycle point and click adventure game.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Full Throttle it was called.
Yeah, one of LucasArts' shorter ones. And I think it's been re-released on Steam in the last year or two, so should be available.
That's cool. I'll look that up.
I guess since the name is so well known, it was just sort of like an institution, but other than being leathery bikers, didn't know a great deal.
Very good. Shall we try and approach some kind of definition?
Starting with a definition and maybe going into a brief overview or a rundown, and we can dig into the individual sections and topics as we go. But according to Encyclopedia Britannica, and you know your lads club has made it big when you are the topic of a global encyclopedia, the Hells Angels are a club for motorcyclists that was founded in California in 1948 and is probably the best known of the so-called outlaw motorcycle gangs.
In the great state of California.
Once
like
again,
everything else we cover.
Yeah. Model trains didn't come from there, that's for sure.
If we did our research properly and dug deep enough, I'm sure we'd find out they did.
All roads lead to California? ? So part of this definition says the club, which is now internationally established, has been accused of criminal activity by law enforcement officials across multiple countries. Although there's some debate over the actual founding date, some say it was as late as 1951, but what does seem to be common is that the name is taken from a World War II American fighter or bomber squadron, and many of those gave themselves these kind of fierce and dramatic names like Hells Angels. And there are some really great examples of those out there as well. Bomber squadrons, I mean. I saw the Blue-Nosed Bastards, the Eagle Squadrons, so that was specifically Americans who served in the British RAF during the war, and the Twin-Tailed Devils were all examples of those kind of grandiose names.
I'm guessing the Twin-Tailed Devils flew aircraft like the de Havilland Vampire and things like that, which had two tails.
I assumed it was just an allergy for Sonic the Hedgehog's sidekick who has two tails and presumably two buttholes.
Yeah, all that. It's probably that.
But despite how it sounds, outlaw motorcycle gang does not necessarily mean that they engage in crimes by default. The term apparently is more of a social status adopted by motorcycle clubs and was first used because these clubs disregarded the rules of groups like the American Motorcycle Association or the AMA, not the laws of a country or a state. That being said, there are a lot of documented cases or allegations of criminal activities carried out by chapters of the Hells Angels in just about every country they operate in, from Argentina to New Zealand. US law enforcement agencies regard them as the top of the big four groups of motorcycle gangs and assert that the Hells Angels are regularly involved in violent and organized crime activities such as drug dealing, trafficking in stolen goods, extortion, and prostitution. Similarly, in Australia, where the club also has a significant following, they are regarded among the big six gangs there. However, officially, members of the organization have continuously asserted that they are only a group of motorcycle enthusiasts who have joined to ride motorcycles together to organize social events such as group road trips, fundraisers, parties, and motorcycle rallies, and that any crimes are the responsibility of the people who carry them out, not the club as a whole. Iconic, now deceased de facto president of the Hells Angel Motorcycle Club for over 40 years, Ralph Sonny Barger, who we can get into details on later, described the organization as a bunch of fun-loving guys who just ride motorcycles. Yet, the credibility of that statement has to come under some scrutiny when you consider that Barger himself has a serious record. He served a total of 13 years in prison following a conviction for heroin trafficking in 1974, and a 1988 conviction for a conspiracy to bomb the clubhouse of a rival motorcycle club.
I was going to say, this kind of thing gives him real credibility. Barger's the real deal, and that kind of credibility would be required, I think, in order to be a successful leader of a group that, at least in some part, defines itself as outlaw.
But it also takes away the credibility of him saying, we're just a bunch of fun-loving guys. Especially when you look at the fact that he was also acquitted of murder in 1972 and, coincidentally, of racketeering charges in 1980.
I don't know, racketeering's pretty fun for a certain kind of guy. Heroin's fun. Famously fun, actually.
I think heroin's famously depressing. It's the other ones that are more fun. But I guess before we get too in-depth to the murky side of the Hells Angels, or the rumours thereof, let's consider what is the official standing of the Hells Angels now, given that you and I have both heard the name long before looking into this. So the Hells Angels, as we said, are synonymous with what we think of as a biker gang, having seeped into popular culture and mainstream collective unconsciousness. Even the fucking Simpsons have done a take on them. But that kind of thing is no accident. They ride typically American-made motorcycles like Harleys. They wear leather jackets and vests with identifying logos, and they travel in big groups, and they party.
American motorcycles like Harley Davidson and, curiously, a brand called Indian, which makes me laugh. I suppose native Indian, perhaps.
Not this kind of Indian. Do not please to be riding me, sir.
Yeah, that's the first cancellation for today.
Yeah.
It's just an accent. Calm down. No one minded when we did South African or Scottish. No one cares about that. Chill out.
I got praise for my Italian accent on the previous one.
It will continue.
Yeah, you can't stop my terrible accents. But far from just being a boys' club, as it might have started out, the Hells Angels actually incorporated into a proper company as early as 1966, and even issued shares of stock. Before and since then, they have legally or allegedly violently protected their literally trademarked name and 4 symbols on their vests, which are reserved for full-fledged members of the chapter only. The Angels were prominent in the 1960s cultural revolution in the US and a part of the anti-establishment counterculture, even though that might sit at odds with what we think of as the flower children, peace-loving hippies of that decade.
Interestingly, there was actually a brief alliance between Hells Angels and the hippie movement, which focused on the band The Grateful Dead. I can't remember the singer's name of The Grateful Dead, but he and Barger became firm friends, and Hells Angels provided security to a lot of hippie gigs.
Well, they allegedly provided security, and
well, they certainly provided violence.
they provided something. But Barger later famously had quite negative things to say about Mick Jagger, the frontman of the Rolling Stones, and allegedly during that same concert that I'm going to mention, Keith Richards had a gun pointed at him when he tried to walk off stage because of the violence. But this was during what some consider to be kind of the death of the free love era, when the Angels were providing security for a Rolling Stones concert held for free, and it turned bloody, and at least one person died, being stabbed to death by allegedly a Hells Angel.
Which he was acquitted of murder because footage emerged showing it was in self-defense.
Yeah, showing that kid had a gun or something, right?
Yeah, the kid pulled out a gun. Was this the Woodstock of the West, I think it was called?
It was Ataman, I think it was something like that.
And the Hells Angels were paid in beer, which they drank copiously.
$500 worth of beer to provide security.
Amazing.
And even in Barger's own words, all they did was go there and kick the shit out of people.
What a job.
He sat on the front of the stage drinking beer, and he said that the stage was built too low and it was the Stones' fault for inciting the crowd coming on late, and did it deliberately because they wanted a gloomy atmosphere to play Sympathy for the Devil to. So there you go.
Interesting.
Sonny Barger himself, quite a character, but was instrumental in building up the Hells Angels' reputation, their image and their myth, acting as a consultant for film and television for decades during his time as the president. So this association and imagery, along with the 1967 book by pioneer journalist Hunter S. Thompson, who lived with the Hells Angels for a year to research it, balanced with their reputation for violence and drug offenses, has made the Angels this shadowy yet well-known symbol of fringe living and renegade freedom, I reckon. And they revel in that. This club, they keep the meaning of certain patches on their jackets and their terminology a secret from outsiders. They tout the phrase, the 1%, or the 1%ers, that's come from, allegedly it came from the AMA statement that 99% of motorcyclists are law-abiding citizens and 1% are outlaws. And one well-known claim, although the club deny it, is that they have a patch on the left breast of the leather jacket or vest, which has the style of 2 SS-like lightning bolts, and that's for recognized killers known as the Filthy Few inside the gang.
It's not a great association to have Nazi symbology on your brand.
If you're voluntarily wearing that as regalia, then it doesn't send a happy, clappy tone.
I don't think, based on this, that they're white supremacists by definition, but the symbology, they do borrow some stuff from the Nazis. Even if it's meant to just shock, it's not a great look for people that supposedly love freedom and rebellion.
That's an interesting juxtaposition, right? Loving freedom and rebellion.
Yeah, there's quite a few paradoxes in this subculture, but we'll get to those later.
But that's kind of a rough rundown of what I came across while I was reading through the topics. And there's more details. There's loads of juicy details about the Hells Angels, but there's certainly more than on the surface of me thinking, oh, they're just some guys that like bikes, right? And you're right, there are similarities with white supremacist movements. And if you look at stuff like the Secrets of the Hells Angels, where people have done YouTube documentary, or they were done for proper TV shows, but they're on YouTube now. Like, they've got former Aryan Brotherhood leaders saying that the Hells Angels were farming out kill contracts in the late 70s that these guys would have taken. Shit like that.
There's a great quote. Let me just find it.
Is it Sonny Barger's one about why there's no black people in
Yes.
the gang?
Sonny Barger said in a 2000 BBC interview, the club as a whole is not racist, but we probably have enough racist members that no black guy is going to get in it. Stated at the time, the club had no black members. And I don't think they ever had or ever have. But there's black motorcycle gangs. Another quote from Barger. Also in 2000, he said, if you're a motorcycle rider and you're white, you want to join the Hells Angels. If you're black, you want to join the Dragons. That's how it is, whether anyone likes it or not. We don't have no blacks and they don't have no whites. When asked whether that could change, Barger replied, anything can change. I can't predict the future. Which I love is such a fatalistic, cool response.
I don't fucking know.
I don't know, man.
There's none there now. I'm not saying they can't be.
Yeah, I really like that. He must have had a lot of charisma and a lot of different skills to be a successful leader for so long.
He was kind of a showman as well. He can talk himself up a good game. He was, even when they were reaching their peak or on the way up from the 60s, he was already acting as a consultant to Hollywood who wanted to make motorcycle gang films. And then, middle of the 60s, they're already a corporation, and he's going out and suing people for using the Hells Angels like logo or the lookalikes of them, or anything that would come close to
the Death's Head logo. It's trademarked or patented or something or other, protected anyway. Yeah, I've come to the conclusion it's not really about motorcycles, actually. They're part of it, but they're more symbolically important than they are about. It's not really about the joy of motorcycle riding. I think the whole thing is kind of about identity and image, and a particular feeling, or several feelings, which I guess can get into as well.
The feeling of having a big throbbing machine between your thighs, humming away.
A feeling of freedom, of masculinity, of brotherhood, I think, which is not easy things to come by in today's society. And I think really that's what it comes down to. And the motorcycle is a symbol of freedom and a symbol of these other things. And they fucking love symbols. They've got symbols for everything.
I think that the motorcycles, they were important at the start, and I think they are still important to the gang's identity. What their normal group activity is, and what you pay your membership dues to do, is go on group rides with other guys. And they have formats for how they ride. The leaders at the front. If you're just a hanger-on or an associate, you're at the back. It does all kind of center around the motorcycle, but there's so much else going on. All the partying and drinking and the clubhouses and the rituals are now equally as big a part. But they were all vets to start with in the 50s, like when they kicked off. I think it was for veterans of the Second World War, or a lot of them, and they were buying up military issued or military built motorcycles because they were dirt cheap at the time, and that gave you that sense of freedom.
And Harley Davidson supplied the US military motorcycles, so it was the obvious brand to go to for these ex-military men. And I looked into how and why it was founded, and yeah, as you say, immediately post World War II, these vets came back and they'd been living dangerous lives where they could literally die at any moment, where they're exposed to violence and risk and excitement that comes with that. And they had this sense of brotherhood with the men they were with, which was maybe the only thing that kept them alive sometimes, and maybe the only thing that felt real out there. And this shared extreme danger which bonded them together. And when they came back home, they were asked to integrate into civilian domestic life, and none of these things were present anymore. And a motorcycle club, especially one that operates outside the law, I think was an opportunity to get all of these things back, to get brotherhood with people, to get excitement through the motorcycle and excitement through crime, potentially. And that the crimes they did together, in theory, would bond them together through secrecy, if nothing else, in a sort of mutually assured destruction.
I don't think it all started out as we're going to get together so we can all commit crimes. I think it was about that need for a brotherhood and a connection that you would have had in a military setting. And some guys change when they have these kind of experiences, and it's just not possible to go back to normal life, and they would find themselves with nothing else to do. There wasn't a wife and kids waiting for them at home, and suddenly they didn't really want one of those anymore either. They kind of really thrived in that wartime environment, and it was getting a taste of that again, and having something to cling to, something to believe to, and something to commit to. You know, if you can commit to an idea or a symbol as a club, then you feel like there's something, you're part of a bigger something. It's not just me, dipshit Dave.
It gives you
anymore.
purpose. And this is one of the paradoxes. It's the desire for freedom and the desire to also belong to something. And I think freedom on the Hells Angels terms is what's important to them. Yet they have this strict hierarchy. They've got a particular code of conduct, particular rules. So it's not anarchy. It's not freedom in the form of chaos. It's freedom from, in theory anyway, society's values and the opportunity to live by your own, which happen to be shared with other members.
So yeah, living by a creed, living by a code, and not being part of the system, which seems to always come back as kind of the enemy, even though
The system seems to be the enemy, yes.
Even though I think particularly early on it was Barger or someone else that said, you know, we're all military men, and if trouble were to break out, we'd sign up in a heartbeat, but something, like, but that doesn't mean we have to take your laws now, kind of thing.
Uh-huh. That's interesting, because I think in the same ethos, you could easily justify not wanting to die for the government because some rich people in suits started a war somewhere in a country that you've got no personal grudge with. I certainly wouldn't be keen to go off and fight in that war.
No, I absolutely wouldn't. I would not a pacifist. Maybe a conscientious objector.
Coward.
Yes.
That's what they used to... That's the joke anyway.
Yeah. Conchies just get put in prison and given white feathers by ladies because you're not man enough to go and fight and die for your country.
It's a very convenient propaganda for the elite class to have, isn't it? Oh, you object to our shitty war? Well, you're a coward, and we're going to shame you so more people sign up.
What country am I supposed to fight for and die for? I've lived in 4 of the fucking things, you know? Which one do I owe allegiance to?
For the record, I do think World War II was worth fighting. That's an exception to this rule, but things like the Vietnam conflict, nah, man.
It's all very well to look back 100 years ago with your rose-tinted glasses on now.
Yes, in my safe house in Oxford.
Not speaking German.
Passing judgment, not speaking German, which I never get tired of.
Beautiful language.
I love not speaking German.
I wish I spoke German.
From what I can tell about the Code of Honor, these things aren't written down. They're not exactly closely guarded secrets, but they're kind of guarded secrets nonetheless. So the club's publicly visible rules centre on loyalty to the club above everything, angels first, silence and never cooperating with law enforcement or outsiders about internal business, respect to fellow members, the club's symbols and hierarchy, and they treat their patches on their battle jackets, their denim vests, also known as cuts for cut-offs, because they cut the arms off the military jackets. They have respect for the patch, which is bordering on religious reverence. They won't even wash it. You can't wash the Brotherhood off or something like that. It's probably just a justification to have a minging smelling jacket.
That's why you fucking stink. Sorry, mate, that's the rules. Can't wash it. And yeah, that's fine, but what about your fucking dick?
You mustn't touch your mate's patch either. It's forbidden to touch another Hells Angels patch.
Were you watching some of the documentary or the short thing that Jay Dobbins did, the guy that infiltrated them?
That was
that where you got some of this from?
Yes.
So if you're wearing the typical mirrored shades of a motorcyclist and another Hells Angel greets you, you got to take those glasses off so he can look you in the eye. And
shake his hand with an ungloved hand.
Yeah, if you're wearing riding gloves, you better take that fucking glove off before you shake my hand, son.
Because it's about respect.
And don't pat a man on the back. Don't touch his patch, yeah.
Yeah. I quite like those things, to be honest.
And the patches aren't yours. The patches still belong to the Hells Angels. You're just borrowing them.
It takes a lot to get one of these patches. So the other codes of honor are reputation. Violence or intimidation is justified to defend the patch or a brother's honor. They call each other brothers, not, gov or mate, goose. And
bum buddy.
Courage and self-reliance, weakness or dependence are despised, despite the fact they literally depend on each other. But I guess it's dependence on not each other that is despised.
Dependence on anything other than the people you're allowed to depend on by our rules that we don't live by.
A motorcycle gang only works by numbers. One dude is not a motorcycle gang. The whole strength and fear behind them is in the multiple people that operate in it.
Well, yeah, to even be a chapter of the Hells Angels, you have to have a minimum of 6 members. This isn't you and me are going to form the Hells Angels chapter of Lower Oxford in your garage.
No, and I think we might not pass the selection criteria anyway. I don't even know how you start a new chapter.
You can get patched over. That's where you have an existing motorcycle gang that you become friendly with the Hells Angels, and then they can absorb you. So they put new patches on you. They patch you over, but you still have to go through their membership process, it seems. You still have to go through the process of being a
hang around.
Yeah, but if you're going to be patched over, if they basically decided to patch your club over, you go through that prospecting stage. So you're kind of, I think you skip being a hang around. You're an associate, and then you're a prospect.
So this recruitment process, first you'd be invited to hang around. So you might know some guys in the motorcycle scene, and they'll invite you to hang around with them, with other Hells Angels and things like that. If they think you're cool, they might make you a prospect, which is served for a minimum of 1 year and can go on as long as necessary. And during this time, you're expected to do various tasks, errands, maybe crimes.
Prove yourself
that you're of the right moral character. And eventually you might be invited to become, I'm not even sure you're invited, made a full patch, but only if all the other full patch members of your chapter are in agreement. If one objects, then you continue as a prospect.
Hang around. This is, you've maybe expressed an interest in the Hells Angels. You want to kick around with them. You think these guys are cool. And someone says to you, okay, you can come to a rally with us, or you can come to this ride with us. But you're not in. That doesn't mean you're in. You're just friends of the club almost. And one of the sources was saying that to even be considered to be a hang around, you had to have known a member of the club in person for at least 5 years.
Wow, a fair amount of time. They're very slow to recruit.
Oh yeah. You can't jumpstart this process. It's you really have to earn their loyalty, and I think that's where this sort of closeness, this camaraderie comes in. You know, if you get to be a full patch, you've earned it, and you're clearly committed to this by then because you'll have committed so much time. So associate lasts 1 to 2 years, and that's before you become a prospect. And then, as you said, prospect has a minimum of 365 days. But as a prospect, you do get your bottom rocker, the bottom patch on your jacket, and that will be with your location and possibly the letters MC to say motorcycle club. But you don't get to wear the logo, and you certainly don't get to wear the words Hells Angel on your back as a prospect.
I'm not sure exactly, but I think if you wear a battle jacket with the full patch get up, Hells Angel, and you're not one, you are asking for trouble.
They will kick the shit out of you.
Yeah. I'm guessing the merch they sell doesn't include battle jackets and full patch stuff. That is, I believe, religiously protected.
It'll be like trashy t-shirts that have got the logo printed in the center or something like that. Or it has slogans like support your local angels or something like this. But yeah, you are not getting your hands on a proper patch.
No, I wouldn't even want to touch one if I found one, to be honest.
Cursed. The smell of 1,000 farts will leak into your hand.
If some passing Hells Angel sees me handling it, takes issue with it, I don't want to fight him or 30 guys.
You don't want to be passed around like prison wine.
Do I want to know what prison wine is? Is it what I think it is? It's wine made in prison.
Yeah. Probably brewed in a toilet.
Delicious.
You can brew sangria in the toilet.
So another thing that happens during these initiation processes is something that Jay Dobbins mentioned, a mud check. Do you shit your pants? Do you shit your pants in a dangerous situation? Because obviously you're no good if you do. You know, you've got to be useful in a pinch. That's kind of the whole point. You've got to be someone that can be relied on. His story was really cool, actually.
We've said the name Jay Dobbins twice now, but he does have a fascinating story to tell, although he is probably living in fear of his life, and if he isn't, then he's not very smart from these guys.
Go on, tell us.
I've got part of the page open here, but he worked for the branch of the U.S. government law enforcement. The government, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, the ATF. So he was an ATF agent who successfully infiltrated the Hells Angels by going undercover for several years to become... did he become?
Posing as a gun runner and debt collector.
He says that he was made a full patch by the time the investigation came to an end. Sonny Barger says that he never was a full patch. They say, oh, he wasn't that big a deal. But, you know, they want to downplay his story because
it makes them look bad.
His case led to multiple arrests and convictions for these guys. But then he's also gone on to do things like publish a book where he tells all the seedy stories and stuff and does these interviews like that we've read.
The book's called No Angel and apparently is well worth a read. I'm going to buy it.
But he successfully infiltrated the gang in an operation that the ATF called Black Biscuit.
I thought it was Operation Rough Rider. Was that a different one?
I think that was a different one. Black Biscuit gets mentioned. I think he says it in that brief thing on YouTube as well. And that was between like 2001 and 2009 or 2002 and 2009.
Whoa, Black Biscuit, bam-a-lam.
Whoa, soggy biscuit, ram-a-lam. So that's kind of the process of getting in. Have we really covered what the Hells Angels do?
That was a question I found myself asking quite early on. As I know what they look like. I know what the flavour of this is. I know what the rough sentiment is. But what's it for? What do they actually do? What's the point of this? And I don't think it really is about Sunday rides with the guys on motorbikes. At least not for the dedicated ones. Maybe the orbiters, the casuals, the cosplayers, it is. But yeah, I think it really comes down to other things like finding that brotherhood, that excitement, that sense of belonging whilst also being a outsider to society, all that kind of stuff. I think that's really what it's all about. And I think I tried to decide whether it could work without crime or whether the crime is a necessary ingredient. And I think the crime is what makes the difference between a motorcycle club, which is basically just hobbyists where it's about motorcycles and riding, and an outlaw motorcycle club or ones like the Hells Angels, where there really is a loyalty and a brotherhood, which I think can only really be achieved through crime, because what else can bond you together like that? You're not risking anything otherwise. The fact that you might commit some form of crime together, you're really putting your money where your mouth is. You're standing to lose something. It's a costly signalling of your values. And I think it's very difficult to fake that.
I think that partly it's about that socializing. It does seem like there's a good side of this that is the social club aspect, and maybe for those that are on the periphery or kind of in the orbit of it, then that's all it has to be. It doesn't have to be about the seedier, darker side of the crime element of the Hells Angels, but they have a clubhouse where it feels like, hey, this is a bunch of cool guys. There's no rules here. I can just go and get wasted and talk shit and shoot pool. That's what I think Jay Dobbins was saying as well. Some of the kind of regret he would feel from walking away from something like that is it is a bit of a fraternity. So even though he was in it for catching them for the ATF and therefore exposing the drugs side of it, because that's a big part of it really from the 60s onwards, there's no escaping from it from anyone's records, even former Angels. But it can also be about a cool place to hang with the guys.
And he really liked a lot of the people that he met, disliked some as well. But I think that was tough for him, basically betraying them, which is how they saw it as well. And I believe, I didn't get into the full story, but I believe the ATF that he worked for hung him out to dry as well. And he lost a lot in this whole process and was never really, I don't know what reward he thought he was going to get, but I don't think he ever got it.
He said that he thought he was going to prove himself to be this amazing undercover agent, and he foolishly put his wife and children's daughter, he put the job before their lives while he was doing all of this. And it didn't really get him anywhere other than the fact that he does these interviews and wrote this book now. I mean, they burned his house down at some stage.
Yeah. I think he's lucky to have got away with just losing his house.
I think that the ATF, he said that they had open bounties on him, which is possibly true. I don't know. They certainly downplayed him in public, but the ATF probably had to do a lot of compromising to get deals on who they'd be able to lock up and who they couldn't, which means that, some of the work that he will have done is thrown out because, he might have gone after 5 of the big players and they take deals with 3 of them. So he's fucked up. But certainly he didn't leave the gang out good, which is the only way you can kind of retire from the Hells Angels with any semblance of not being threatened. You can get out good or you can get out bad.
And you don't want to be out bad. They come and take your patch forcibly and sometimes reclaim your motorcycle, which is interesting.
Yeah, they take your bike, they take your vest back, and they'll cut a tattoo or burn a tattoo off you if you've had one.
Wow, that's rough.
Out good, basically you get to retire. You leave the gang in good standing, but you still have to give all that stuff back, and you don't really associate with those guys. You can't go to the clubhouse anymore. You're out. Once you're out, you're out.
So they honorable discharge, basically, from the military, I think is the equivalent.
But they kind of expect these guys to be in it for life. Even the old timers, even if you weren't going to be riding anymore, they would still expect you to put the club first. You can have your white picket fence and stuff.
The traditional motto is "Angels forever, forever angels."
Yep.
Another slogan is, "When we do right, nobody remembers. When we do wrong, nobody forgets." And my personal favorite, 3 can keep a secret if 2 are dead.
Yeah, I think there's articles like that and all sorts of shit. Like they love these kind of things.
That is wisdom for life, my friend. If you ever want to actually keep a secret, don't fucking tell anyone. No one. Or if you do, kill them.
But they were saying in some of these documentaries, like, there is no payday or salary to be drawn from the Hells Angels. It's not a job that you go to. Some of them apparently run a clean business. They will sell swag and paraphernalia that's worth multi-million dollars now. But the club itself, unless you're doing something illegal, it's not like your $20 membership per month is going to be paying for all the booze that you're going to consume on these riotous nights out, or even all the fuel for the bikes. So what else is going on?
For most people, it's nothing to do with money. Obviously, drug trade, where that's happening, that must produce money. Because why else would you take the insane risks involved in it? And racketeering and whatever other illicit stuff was going on. But as far as I could tell, most Hells Angels that are in the club, it's not about financial concerns at all. It's all about identity and brotherhood and all these other intangible things.
Sure, but the club has to have something coming in.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
you can't maintain a clubhouse. You can't be buying everyone beers. You can't be.
It's difficult to maintain a treehouse without any money.
Yep.
Waterproof it. Pay your parents' rent.
Where does that money come from? The answer's drugs.
What, from members paying their dues, right?
Yep. $25 a month.
From their job as an accountant. So they can afford a $20,000 Harley. Harley Davidson have leaned into this outlaw image association with their motorcycles.
That's their whole brand.
They are literally nothing without it.
Yeah.
Because I'm told, I've never ridden a Harley Davidson, but I'm told that they're crap bikes by almost every metric, apart from theatre and presence, because they're characterful and they sound amazing.
They don't sound amazing. They're noisy as fuck. It's annoying. Like, get away from my apartment. I'm fucking fed up of hearing your shit.
That's also kind of the point, isn't it? This is another thing about the Hells Angels, is they don't want you prying into their business. You stay out of our business and our concerns. But the whole aesthetic screams, look at me. They're visually striking with iconic patches and clothing, huge, loud flash motorcycles that make an absolute racket. And it's almost like daring people to say something. Like, go on, have a problem with us. Because I think they need things to rebel against. Reminds me of that film, Rebel Without a Cause. And the more people complain about them in broader society, then that's a line they can draw and then stand on the other side of it. Be like, aha, you're trying to suppress us. We've now got someone we can rebel against and defy.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, I think there's this hope that people will have a problem with them, that they can then define themselves by that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, if society embraced you or weren't telling you that you're a shithead, then you feel like, oh, what's the point?
You can't be an outlaw if you're accepted by the law. That's the point. If society accepts you, oh, we love our outlaws. Yeah.
Oh, we love a good outlaw around here.
Oh, they're lovely. Lovely people, all of them. Yeah, it loses all the mystique.
I don't know. I quite like the fact that they've got some rules. I'm not that bothered about their rules about anyone who has had anything to do with law enforcement is automatically disbarred from joining. Like, if you've If you've been a police officer, obviously, or a prison security guard, nope, get out.
That makes sense, right?
If you've even applied, then no, you can't be a part of it.
You've got a problem with that?
No, I don't.
You don't? I don't. That's fair enough.
I think that's fine. And I'm all for their thing that I'm looking for on the page here now. But some of their rules, like child molesters or something.
Oh, yeah. No child molesters.
Child molesters and people who have applied to become police, intravenous drug users are also forbidden.
Don't get high on your own supply.
Only the intravenous stuff. The other stuff is okay.
That's cool.
So it's been hard. It's basically been hard to dance around it, but let's get into the dark side of the Hells Angels. And probably first and foremost is the drug stuff, right? The drug trade.
It'd almost be more interesting to get into the light side of...
if we could find some.
Well, there is... Let's do the light side first, because I think this is actually more surprising. They do blood drives. They do some charity work, such as Toys for Tots. And they do some kind of conspicuous, socially minded things like this. And you could argue it is simply for reputation laundering and a kind of public image defense, which I think it is. But also, I think the irony is not lost on them. I think they find it quite amusing. And they're not, I don't think they're, violent animals or anything. You can be a good person and a Hell's Angel, I suspect, probably.
Yep. There's people, and you can't really take anything that you read on the internet at face value, so I'm not even sure the value of me saying this, but there's quite a lot of comments where it's like, oh yeah, my gran was stuck on a ferry, or was about to get off a ferry, and her car tire blew out and no one was helping her, but then a couple of Hells Angels came along and changed the towel for her. She said they were the nicest people she'd ever met, or something like this. There are stories about them being upstanding, not necessarily law-abiding, but upstanding citizens. They would kind of follow a certain code of conduct. And as he said, even Jay Dobbins is quoted as saying they make positive contributions to society with stuff like the blood drives and the charity work, and organizing public events. It's kind of like come and hug an angel kind of shit. But
they're not mad dogs. They're not psychos that will start on someone for no reason.
This is kind of where I would ultimately get to when we come around to what do you really think of it and would you be into it. I have a problem with it in maybe the size and scale of it, and everyone is tarred with the same brush if you're a Hell's Angel. Because if you opened up the Hell's Angel chapter in Little Blitherington or something like that, let's assume that you did get the blessing from the big boys, that you've opened your local chapter, and all 6 of you that meet in Fred's shed and have a couple of miles on a Saturday afternoon and get to call yourselves Hell's Angels. These guys somehow are doing absolutely nothing wrong, and maybe these are your cosplayers and stuff, but by their standards, they are in the Hells Angels. They've passed the test, but they're not narcotics running gun smugglers who pass around women like possessions. It's almost too big of a brand now to say that the Hells Angels are one thing or another, because there will be smaller chapters that want to be squeaky clean. There's some guys that are like fitness freaks and Hells Angels. They don't all have to be rotund.
I don't know if that club would pass the test of moral character if all we're doing is having a couple of miles in Fred's garage and maybe barbecuing a sausage. I don't know if that's the right stuff for the Hells Angels.
I don't know.
But that aesthetic has been borrowed by other motorcycle clubs, by individuals, by the media. It's an absolutely iconic look and feeling for people. But there's only actually around 6,000 members of the Hells Angels worldwide.
Like full patch members?
Yeah.
How many people are prospecting there? How many people are in that 2-year clearing period?
Well, quite a few, I'm sure. But 6,000 is not a lot, bearing in mind that they've got a branch in, I don't know, what is it, like 25 countries or something, maybe more.
It's fucking bigger than our listenership, I'll tell you that.
That's true. Tell your friends, listeners, do us a favour, shill us to a mate.
Hell's Angels out there. Do you want to blare this out the back of your bike as you're riding along?
A real thumping beat to go with your Harley.
So that's the light side of Hell's Angels.
That's more? The light side.
You got any more about how they adopt kittens or some shit?
There's one other one. I don't know if it's Hell's Angels actually, but there's at least one motorcycle gang that provide their services to, I think, abused children, particularly sexually abused children, who are afraid of the world after their ordeal. And I can't remember what it's called. I'll look it up. But they basically offer the protection. They say to these kids, this is our card, our phone number. You give us a call anytime that you're worried or scared, and the whole crew will turn up. No questions asked. 40 of us will appear in as soon as it's possible to get there and provide protection to you. And I think that's a really cool, sweet thing to do.
That's definitely a heartwarming story, if true.
I'm just looking it up. So that organization is called Bikers Against Child Abuse. So does exactly what it says on the tin.
Catchy. It's no blue-nosed bastards, is it?
No. Or the pissed off bastards of Bloomington. I like that one. Pobos.
A group of men who ride motorcycles who think that diddling kids is wrong and want to make repercussions for those who have been diddled. .org.
I like that throughout the criminal underworld, it's pretty much universally accepted that paedophilia is bad or child abuse is bad. Everyone agrees on that, apart from apparently the billionaire class.
Apart from the child molesters.
Yes, the ones writing the laws.
I hear they get a tough time in the prisons.
Oh no.
I'm all for that.
Anyway, so the dark side.
The true side. The actual side. The everyday side. I didn't mean it, don't come around my house. The drug trade. It's got to be, that's just, it comes up again and again, 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 again. You know PCP? How it's got the nickname of Angel Dust? Heard of that?
Angel Dust. No, I haven't.
Okay, so PCP has a street name of Dust of the Angels or Angel Dust, and that's because the Hells Angels were distributing it so widely in 1967. They were selling PCP at all these kind of hippie festivals and stuff like that.
Interesting.
They basically had a monopoly on selling that, but apparently that became less popular, and so to diversify their portfolio, they moved on to meth.
Savvy. Meth.
Yeah.
As long as it's not intravenous.
Yeah, exactly. So meth is apparently a big, big part of the Hells Angels' darker side of their business. That's what they are known to sell. That and weed, apparently. Smoking weeds is cool as a Hells Angel, and selling meth apparently as well. There's one of the former guys that was on the YouTube series Secrets of the Hells Angel, where they were talking to a guy who had been in the club, and he basically started as a low-level meth dealer because he was a night shift factory worker, and he was like, oh, this shit keeps you going. I'm like, I think I can sell some of this to my buddies. And then he got into being in a motorcycle gang. So there's your Nazi associations again, because didn't they invent meth? I think they were giving it to their soldiers to keep them going, get them blitzkrieging real good.
And this guy combined his favourite interests of meth and motorcycling in the Hells Angels.
And the Hells Angels allegedly hired a former Royal Dutch Shell chemist to teach them how to make meth.
Gee, they're not dumb.
They got the right people. They did it right. They learned. Yeah. They learned real good
how to cook.
But yeah, meth comes up a lot.
I quite like reading about the various biker riots or biker wars over the years that they've had with rival gangs. Those are quite interesting.
They're hilarious, like how many countries they're in as well.
A particularly bloody one in Quebec, Canada. Let me just find the details here.
When 6 people's maple syrup was spilled.
In 1977, the Hells Angels arrived in Canada with the Popeye Moto Club, patching over to form the Hells Angels Montreal Charter. During the 1980s and 1990s, there was a major expansion of the club into the rest of Canada. The Quebec Biker War, Wikipedia article of same name, was a violent turf war that began in 1994 and continued until late 2002, as recently as that, in Quebec. The war began when the Hells Angels in Quebec began to try to establish a monopoly on street-level drug sales in Quebec.
Meth.
Many drug dealers and crime families resisted and established groups such as the Alliance to Fight the Angels, led by the Rock Machine Motorcycle Club. The war resulted in the bombings of many establishments and murders on both sides. More than 160 people died, over 300 were injured, and over 100 bikers were incarcerated.
That's quite a lot.
Some real shit. That's real shit, yeah.
Oh yeah, well, have you heard about the Nordic Biker Wars?
I have. I heard that was bloody as well.
In Denmark.
Tell me more.
No, I don't really want to. It's bikers fighting bikers. The Great Nordic Biker War. Something like 1992. But yeah, if you kind of scroll through the countries that they've been in, there was like this war and that war. There's quite a bit in France as well, of all places. But they were pretty short-lived. Oh, we give up.
Yes, the line between club and organised crime syndicate blurs quite frequently.
I think that's the dark side, the downside of their reputation. And this is
it's
tarred with the same brush thing.
It's also the upside of their reputation.
Because if people assume you're in a crime syndicate, then they're not going to touch you.
Exactly, that's part of it. There's power and respect to be had by being feared for being involved in real violent crime and knowing powerful people. And that power and respect must be very enjoyable to be on the good side of. People don't mess with you, you get preferential treatment, people want to do business with you, people are afraid of not doing business with you, all that kind of thing. So like, yes, they have this dark side, but that I think is actually necessary and important and desirable to the Hells Angels. You know, they're not doing these blood drives and toys for tots in order to completely clean up their image. They're doing it to muddy the waters. Say, well, these guys aren't just drug guys, they also do good stuff. You know, makes it harder to write them off, but they need that bad stuff. I think it's essential to their image.
I think that's probably going to answer kind of the question of why do people do it? Why do people want to join the Hells Angels? And we touched on it to start with, this kind of brotherhood and solidarity and being part of something bigger than yourself. But then it's also this, you really want the reputation and the status of being in the Hells Angels and the protection that it affords you, that no one's going to fuck with you.
I mean, we've been joking, but also not entirely joking in this episode about please don't come and stab us for talking about Hells Angels in a critiquing way or making fun of way. Yeah, some part of me, I'm not very worried, but I think it's within the realms of possibility to get into trouble for this kind of thing. It's at least crossed my mind.
Yeah, I know for a fact there's a chapter of them in this. Oh yeah, okay, there we go. 2.5 hours up the road because there's one in Australia. Fuck.
That's within. Well, it might not be within Harley Davidson range. They're pretty inefficient.
There's a few fuel stops along the way for
shit.
sure.
Oh, you might be fucked then.
Yeah, it could be fucked. But I think what we can agree on, so even if you take a lighter stance on organized crime, you know, the organized crime of bootleggers and post-prohibition era gangsters in the 20s and 30s is kind of viewed on through a Hollywood lens these days. Maybe Hells Angels organized crime is a little bit glossed over when you think, oh, it's kind of racketeering, it's protection stuff. It's pay us off or we'll come and smash up your joints, see? That's organized crime, right? That's as bad as it is. But what you cannot escape from being a dark side of this culture and this masculine identity is the misogynistic treatment of women. And even if you leave aside the girlfriends, wives, hangers-on part,
the old ladies,
there's quite widespread accusations of kind of coercion, rape, gang rape, and grooming. That came out including in like Hunter Thompson's book from the 60s onwards. You know, there's something dangerous about a big riled up group of men who are telling each other that, you know, there's no limits, no laws, but those that we make for ourselves. And chucking women into the mix isn't going to be particularly safe space for them. And in fact, that guy, it wasn't Jay Dobbin, it was the other guy that was on Secrets of the Hells Angels, who was saying that when he was kind of prospecting for them, he got a call from the club president who said, I need you to go and pick up my old lady. He was like, okay. Went to his house, like, call me when you get there. Drops her off at I think it is home, not the clubhouse. Calls the guy up, yeah, I got her. He's like, right, okay, now punch her in the mouth. He was like, well, I want to get into this gang and I don't think it's right, but I'm going to have to do it. He told me to, I can't back down now. So he punches this woman in the mouth and the guy says, no, good, now fuck her. You know, that's just a complete lack of respect. And it's like, every one of these little mini documentaries mentions it as well, that they're, unless you're an old lady, whether you're like the official wife or girlfriend of a member, other hangers-on can be passed around like property, and that would just be kind of playthings for one biker after another. And that's pretty fucked up.
I saw a photo of a Hells Angel and his old lady being the term, affectionate term, I hope, for a wife or long-term girlfriend of a angel, and they're totally off limits to anyone else. And in this photo, the woman's battle jacket said property of Mike or whatever it was, this guy, and it was something that she was wearing. Presumably, I don't know how much of her own volition and how much by coercion. I don't know if, like any abusive relationship, it's difficult to leave once you're in it. But I also believe there's plenty of women voluntarily in this scene. There's a quote here saying, the men that wrote that negative stuff about the Hells Angels must be meatheads. These women are part of the scene because they want to be and enjoy it. These women have broken from society's stereotypically defined roles and found freedom in the biker world.
And that was written by one of the wives, was it?
It was written by a woman, possibly one of the old ladies.
But again, problem, mass organization, tarred with the same brush. There will be chapters that don't have any of that going on, and then there'll be ones that came out of the worst parts of the world, or just have a certain cast of membership that are dirtbags that will make that your reputation for everyone.
It's also worth noting that almost all Hell's Angels are men, and I think it's a requirement in some chapters. There were some in the past, apparently, but that was more in the past, closer to its origins than it is now.
It's been men only since 1964.
There you go. Yeah.
In the club's charters.
Mm-hmm.
That was something Barger brought in.
That doesn't automatically make it misogynistic, but it's a potential place for it to thrive.
Joe's red pill warning.
What?
Just because it's all men doesn't mean it's misogynistic.
That's true, though.
I know, it's just fun to trigger you. Get the net. I mean, there'll be women that would be in the scene that would also enjoy the same kind of protection if your guy is a Hell's Angel guy.
And danger and excitement. Women like that stuff too.
You don't have to worry about any other Karens at the supermarket.
No. When I got a motorcycle, I was astonished by the number of my female friends that wanted to go on the back of it. I thought it was a myth that women dig motorcycles. Like, yeah, sure, guys, of course. And when I got mine, I could not believe it. They were really into it. It blew me away. They were more into it than I was.
You still have it?
Yeah.
Do you ever learn to ride it?
I say motorcycle, it's really more of a scooter.
Sit on it and make the sounds.
Brum, brum, brum. Yeah, no, I have a license. It's a Yamaha XSR 700, which is 50 cc's too small to be considered an appropriate Hell's Angels engine.
It's also a Yamaha, so not American made, so fuck off, son.
Yeah, exactly. That's something we haven't really talked about much, is the actual motorcycles. They pretty much have to be American, and cruiser style is also kind of mandatory, and an engine bigger than at least 750 cc's. So basically Harleys and Indians. Actually, this is something that made me really laugh, is one of the requirements to be a Hell's Angel is a legal driving license, a valid driving license.
It's basically the only requirement.
It tickled me so much that it's still operating within the law. You're not allowed to ride a motorcycle without one, which makes all kinds of practical sense, but I found that funny.
But as they said, they're not outlaws because they break the law by default. They just have that, but they don't conform to the ideals of the American Motorcycle Association.
I think I'll be honest, that's a lame definition of an outlaw club, an outlaw movement. Oh, we do conform to the laws of the land, we just don't conform to some club's rules somewhere that we didn't have to conform to anyway.
But that's exactly them embracing this, the one percenter thing. It was an organization like that said, 99% of our riders are good boys, don't worry about the 1%, they're just outlaws. So they're like, yeah, okay, guess we're outlaws then, fuck you. It's that we don't care about what you think, but we're also going to wear it as a badge of pride.
Yeah, that makes sense. But it's not really outlaw, in my opinion. Going back to the masculine identity thing, where it's a hyper-masculine world of strength, aggression, dominance, I kind of understand that need for masculinity and those things, because I get very frustrated in my life. I'm basically an obedient citizen, an obedient ordinary man, and I get frustrated that all my fucking problems are things like bureaucratic problems or financial problems, or I can't just ever pick up a sword and cut something in half and solve a problem. Violence doesn't solve any problems for me. It doesn't have to be against people, but I can't just, I'm so snarled up in red tape, and I just feel like a pussy all the time dealing with this stuff. And what do I actually do that is traditionally masculine? There is less and less room for it in this world. And I completely understand wanting to join some kind of movement that gives you at least a little taste of these things. Discuss.
Let's swing that into, would you be into this then? So the masculine identity part of it, yes, from you. The riding the motorcycles, yes, for you.
Yes and no. I love I don't want to have to do performative masculinity. I don't want to have to do it on someone else's terms. In fact, I find the idea of conforming to a club and going through a year-long initiation ceremony to have some other people tell me what to do, I find that completely against my own ethos. I guess I cherish my personal freedom more than I would want to belong to something like that. But it doesn't mean I don't long for a way to be masculine without it either being punished or causing me more problems. And not that being masculine has to be violence and domination and excitement and fear, but it certainly isn't sending emails to power companies because they've overcharged you and hoping that they take pity on you. You know, that's emasculating. The whole of modern life is filled with little struggles like that and no way to really cut loose, if that makes sense.
So you want to be able to get your leathers on, 40 of your brothers show up at EDF's headquarters and tell them to fuck their bill and give you back your money.
I've got fantasies about that all the time. I love the idea of, but that's the thing about modern world is it's so abstracted. You can't even go and find the guy because there isn't a guy that made that policy. You can go and shout at an Indian customer service agent and he didn't make the policy. He's just reading a fucking script. So, you know, even if you manage to talk to his manager, he doesn't make the policy either. It's, you know, corporate set thing. And you're fighting against this behemoth, faceless, anonymous machine that you can't ever fight it. You can't find the guy, beat him up and make your problems go away. You know, it's so frustrating. And I don't know if I really have an outlet for that frustration. Do you know what I mean? Don't you just wish you could go and hit something with a hammer and have fewer problems at the end of it?
Who's to say I don't do that?
It's going to be selective about what you hit.
Not necessarily. I mean, I like parts of this. I like the idea of living by a code of honor. Sorry,
let me ask you, would you be into this, Andy?
I'm answering it in a way that I think circles some of your points, and there is crossover. I'm going to Venn diagram you real hard.
My body is ready.
Yeah, I like the idea of living by a code of honor, that you have a set of morals and principles and standards that you agree with and conform to and back no matter what. Not necessarily that you would never ever compromise on, but stuff like not associating with child molesters.
That's all right. I do that principle every day.
Exactly.
Without even trying.
Just doing the honourable right thing. So I like that side of it.
Sorry, there's something I want to add here is I think a principle isn't a principle if it doesn't cost you anything to enforce it. It's just branding otherwise. You know, I can say that, you know, I'd never ever work with a convicted child molester. But if it turns out in my job that I am working with a convicted child molester and my options are either quit my job to get away from this person or go back on my principle, if I go back on it, then it never really was a principle. And people can say all kinds of stuff.
Or make him go away.
Yeah, or make him go away. Call my local chapter. But do you know what I mean? Like, it's easy to say things, but unless they're actually tested and it costs you something to enforce it, then it's meaningless.
Is this a principle? I don't buy organic vegetables on principle.
Does it cost you anything to enforce that?
Sometimes I can't buy carrots if the only options are organic carrots.
And do you not buy them?
Yeah, I don't buy them.
And do you love carrots?
Buy something else.
I guess that's a principle. Well done. It's very undramatic, but congrats.
My emasculated principles.
Yeah, it would costs you something to enforce that. You don't get to have carrot in your recipe because on principle you won't buy organic ones. Congrats. That's a principle.
Great. Small victories every day.
Sorry, I derailed you there. Carry on.
It's all good. I write it down. I can never be derailed. Like a sexual train. Without the
trains can be derailed. Famously.
Not this one. Even the drug dealing element of this, I'm not necessarily against.
Like, you have a very strange moral landscape, and I love it.
I know. Moral compass that spins like a clock. And not taking the hard stuff yourself. Good principle. Only deal it. If someone else is stupid enough to buy it from you, that's on them. You know, that's freedom.
You believe in individual rights.
I don't know. I guess that's the appealing side of this. But as I kind of alluded to a minute ago, what I don't like is the mass scale of it and the organization. That you're part of something really big. Like, if it was a group of 6 guys and no more than 6 guys, that probably is even too much to keep 6 guys in check. Have you ever had to try and fucking organize a band? It's like herding cats. It must be like that.
Rule them with an iron fist.
That's how we run this podcast. It's the only way to maintain control. I don't even like to be in clubs for stuff that people think is normal to be in clubs for. So there are things, fucking running clubs, okay? If I'm going to go out and go for a run, I'm going to put my shoes on and make myself suffer and pant and die in my own time. I don't need to be surrounded by a bunch of other try-hard knob ends in Lycra doing the same thing. Fuck off. I do things my way.
So it's the Groucho Marx philosophy that you wouldn't want to be part of any club that would have you.
Any club that would have me, I wouldn't want to be a part of. Yeah, something like that.
I understand exactly what you mean. I think run clubs aren't really about running. They're about a social thing as much as anything. But that principle, or whatever you want to call it, that ethos, I completely agree with. I enjoy riding my motorcycle on my terms without having to listen to some fat fuck's rules about it.
Or riding in formation, which is actually quite difficult. Like you have to keep that space between the guy in front of you, make sure you're not slamming your brakes off the guy behind you, and ride next to, keep space from the guy next to you. I don't think it's necessarily that easy to ride in these massive formations.
No, it sounds quite tricky.
But this mass scale of what they are as an organization, and the fact that you are tarred with the same brush as them, the little whinging chapter of the Hells Angels might be perfectly upstanding citizens. But then you read about these guys that are literally psychos and have butchered entire families who happen to be Hells Angels. And it's like, okay, so that's the thing that the Hells Angels do then.
But you don't align yourself with the Hells Angels brand if you don't also want the negativity that comes with it. With the negativity comes fear. And that's kind of what these people want, I think. You don't accidentally become a Hells Angel.
Don't you? Well, you want the égalité and fraternité of the Hells Angels, but you don't necessarily want to be in the club of rapists.
The intense brotherhood. Maybe you can get that just in a motorcycle club, but I mean, I don't think you can get the brotherhood and the loyalty aspect really unless you're going to commit crimes. You're just a hobby club.
Just pals.
If you don't do that, because your principle is not being tested.
So we're not friends then, because we're not doing crimes together.
We have a very long history together.
I'm criming under the desk right now.
We beat up Richard together quite a lot.
That little asshole deserved it.
Yeah, cut that. He totally did, though.
Would you be into it? Kind of answered that. Aspects of it are appealing, but not the club itself. And certainly I don't have the patience and effort to go through a membership process that long.
No.
But the other important question that we must ask,
The question.
The people demand it.
The Termite King demands it, Justin. Is it sexual?
Is it sexual?
Well, power is pretty sexy. Power and sexuality are very closely entwined, I think. But I would say no on this. Maybe sex is kind of like currency within the Hells Angels subculture. Maybe sexual appeal, virility, that kind of masculinity, but it's not really a sexual subculture, I would say.
No, it's not got a hidden gay biker angle. I haven't even made jokes about that, not just because I'm fearful for my own life, but because I genuinely didn't see anything that would even suggest or support that. It wasn't like, oh, well, there's no girls here. Hand jobs all around, guys.
A cheeky Dutch rudder.
Maybe for some chapters, the Hells Angels, or for some people, like it represents power and therefore the ability to get sex through coercion or otherwise. But I don't think it's an intrinsically sexual subculture. It is a brotherhood and underlying potentially a criminal subculture. But I wouldn't say it's intrinsically linked to sex.
I would agree. So, have you learned something? Has your opinion changed?
I learned a lot. It was actually fascinating. I might go and read Sonny Berger's book or something, even if it's, self-publicity, or maybe I'll look into some books of other Hells Angels. It's interesting in the same way that reading about Motley Crue in The Dirt was interesting, but it doesn't make me want to be there in that time and place. I would be like, ugh, this stinks. It's really smelly.
It probably wasn't as sexy as we're imagining it.
No.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed researching this. It's been fascinating. I learned a lot more about it than I expected to. Do I have a more favourable opinion of it now? Yeah, I think so. I understand it more. I feel like it's not just people cosplaying as masculine outlaws on the weekend when they go back to their accountancy job on Monday morning. That exists as well, but I think the Hells Angels is just about managed to preserve enough of a hardcore image, maybe a hardcore reality, that I think there might be a little bit of genuine, a little bit of authenticity to the outlaw claim, just a little bit, even in the modern world.
I would hope that this has taught you some respect for the Hells Angels, fear, if nothing else. Because I think you can be in a biker club or a biker gang, if you really want to say it like that isn't the Hells Angels if you're an accountant that dresses up at the weekend as a biker, but you won't get into the Hells Angels like that. This process, I do believe that that's how they recruit people and that's how they operate. I think that's stringent, and that's a fact.
The fact that they've only got 6,000 members worldwide, I think, is a testament to the fact that they are stringent. They're not just letting anyone into these things. I mean, that's small.
They're legitimately hardcore.
That's maybe the smallest subculture we've covered yet, I think.
Apart from the Sub-Subculture Reddit. Very, very small.
I think, for better or worse, I think it's cool.
It's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay.
I didn't think I was going to end up saying that about people that predominantly ride Harleys, because most of them are kind of anti-cool in my eyes, especially in the UK. Riding a Harley that's got flames on it and wearing a leather vest and no helmet looks cool in the US. It kind of makes sense in the US. It's in context, it makes sense. You know, they've got this history of frontier and outlaw and wilderness and all this all kind of stuff.
There's the fucking space to do it as well.
And the space to do it.
You get on your Harley for a ride. The UK will be the other side of it in like 2 hours. And be like, oh, well, back for chips, is it?
All of it 30-mile-an-hour limits going through Little Shittington, and seeing a guy in, you know, the equivalent battle jacket and not wearing a helmet. Actually, it's a legal requirement here to wear a helmet, but you can wear a half helmet if you want to get bugs in your teeth. But yeah, it just doesn't look right. It's just, I just can't help but think of these people as pretenders, because it's not like you walk around wearing those leathers and that uniform, that costume on your day-to-day life. And I think in the US, you can do that without standing out like a sore thumb.
There are people that are committed and are in the clubs, that are in those chapters, that will have that as the center of their life. You know, going to the clubhouse is a day-to-day activity for them. So probably they do dress like that. But it's also, I think the climate in the UK is wrong. Like, you would get to do a proper ride on this thing like 3 times a year. The rest of it, you'd be like, oh no, I don't want to get it wet.
Harleys are hilariously expensive, actually. They've really become premium, and they were previously, you know, the working man's motorcycle. Nearly a century ago. Yeah.
So that's it. That is the as leathery as promised topic of the Hells Angels. What did you call it last time? As leathery as a Victorian whore's arsehole.
Yes.
You laughed like that as well.
I love that phrase. I just had one more quote to add, which was, according to the Hells Angels website, they are aware that there is an apostrophe missing in Hells, but, quote, it is you who miss it, we don't.
Yep. So they write Hells without the apostrophe S. Mm-hmm. Grammatically incorrect, but they've tried to save it with cool points.
Exactly. They've not bothered to retcon it. They're just pretending they're not bothered by it because someone was illiterate when they printed the first patch.
They just went, what are you complaining about, nerd?
Shut it, nerd. Exactly.
So you can't follow us in a long chain of bikes, 40 people long, but you can follow us on all the crappy social medias.
That's so smooth. Such a smooth segue. A master of the art.
Currently, you can find us on Twitter or X at Sub-Subcult on Instagram at Sub-Subculture Podcast, or our own Reddit page, r/Sub-Subculture Podcast. So leave us comments, your own suggestions for future topics. We might cover them and give you a shout out. And you can also check out our back catalogue on those places, or your favorite place for podcasts, whether that's Spotify or Apple or YouTube or some other delicious app that takes an RSS feed. Find us, look for us by name.
It's been real.
It's been real, and not just cosplayers.
One day we'll cover cosplay.
One day we should talk about those, what are they called? Street angels? The ones that went around beating up people that were being naughty in the 70s in New York? Maybe that's another topic, another time. But not next time. Next time, we are talking about mukbang videos.
Yay!
It's going to be disgusting again.
This is people overeating on camera, right?
That's what you told me, yeah. When you wrote it on the topic list, that's right, I'm blaming you. I was like, what the fuck is that? And you said, it's Koreans, look it up. And then it came up in the ASMR research. And now we're going to go for it.
Excellent. I can't wait.
I can wait.
All right.
This has been the Sub-Subculture Podcast.
Ride free, citizen.
Okay. Ride free, not safe.
Ride free, citizen.
Do whatever you fucking want.
Safety's part of the man. The system trying to keep you down. We don't care about safety.
I care about the safety dance.
Let's wrap this up.
Okay.